Guests from various corporate concerns here this weekend as well to watch what's going on and see whether this man is going to be able to take his first Austrian Grand Prix victory. Pole position for him here last year, but he made a poor start. The launch control system didn't really allow him to get off the line terribly well, so he was pushed back down into second place, had that incident with Juan Pablo Montoya, which dropped him further ground. He ended up recovering to third place and in fact was gifted second place by teammate Rubens Barrichello, who moved out of the way to let Michael Schumacher take 6 points for second position. Well, of course, that may come up again this weekend, who knows. Rubens was asked about it yesterday and says he refuses to even think about team orders at the moment. He's not going to worry about it, just wait to see what happens on Sunday. But you have to wonder, with the advantage Michael has in the World Championship at the moment, would they still ask him to Barrichello to move out the way?
Oh, I have no doubt about it whatsoever, because you can never predict what may come up in the future. So Michael is the number one driver in the team. Rubens' role in the team is there to drive for Ferrari, not to drive for Rubens Barrichello. And the lead that Michael Schumacher has in the World Championship right now, 44 points. Rubens Barrichello all the way back on 6 points. I mean, there's no contest. It's a no-brainer, as they would say. Juan Pablo Montoya just joking with Carl, with the engineer that got trapped by the front wheel of Juan Pablo's car. So, yeah, well, I mean, it's just a bit of sport goes on in the team. That's who's the. Juan Pablo knows when to say thanks very much, but no thanks.
Yeah,
I think Carl Gadden could take on Juan Pablo with one arm, and slightly different build and slightly different levels of height and strength, I suspect. Racing drivers not maybe the most courageous out of a car, but certainly courage and bravery in a car beyond reproach.
Yes, one of the bravest and one of the most committed. Juan Pablo Montoya moved into second place in the World Championship for drivers after that second place finish in Barcelona. He's on 23 points, but it's a full 21 points behind Michael Schumacher, so more than 2 wins away, and that would be if the Ferrari didn't finish, and that seems to happen to Rubens Barrichello fairly frequently, not finishing in the Ferrari, but it doesn't seem to happen to Michael Schumacher very much. Eddie Irvine looks set to be one of the first to come on track in this second part of free practice on Saturday morning at the A1 ring, as we're preparing for the 6th round of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship. And there's the man we were talking to just a few moments ago, Mika Salo, now being strapped into the cockpits of the Toyota Formula 1 car. This first season for Toyota, massive manufacturer joining into Formula 1 and doing it the same way that Ferrari does, by building everything themselves at their base in Cologne. Not just the chassis, but the engine as well. Everything that constructs a Formula 1 car, the Toyota team responsible for.
Yes, and Ross Brawn in a press conference in Barcelona, I think really emphasised how valuable, how important it is today in Formula 1 to have total control and also total commitment over your Formula 1 project. And Toyota mirroring what Ferrari have done so successfully and are presently doing with total domination. And in Michael Schumacher's time this morning, 19001, I mean, just came out of the blue on a run, not on a brand new set of tyres, which of course indicates just how good the Bridgestone tyre is, that it still is capable of doing that kind of lap time after a series of laps. Some half a second quicker than his teammate, and then 1.5 seconds quicker than the third place runner Kimi Räikkönen. We keep referring back to what happens in these practice sessions. We do not know the level of fuel that any one car or the entire field may have been running, but 1.5 seconds is an awesome amount of time. There you can see 1.592 in fact, to be precise. Frentzen 1.7. That was a great performance from Heinz-Harald Frentzen, again indicating how much progress in the 2 races that Arrow's team have made. But come qualifying, which will begin at 12 o'clock UK, 1 o'clock in Austria, it will be an entirely different story, and expect to see Williams and McLaren up what might be considered their rightful positions. The question mark, I think, this weekend, Ben, is going to be, what are Renault doing? Have they found the balance that they so far have not been able to succeed in finding, or are they going to sort of blend back down into the bottom of the top 10, or maybe into the top of the bottom, the second 10?
That's right, it looks like they might be battling a little bit more on this occasion. Remember, in Malaysia, Jarno Trulli only managed to qualify in 12th position there, although Jenson Button was 8th on the grid for that race. They've normally been inside the top 10. Last time out in Barcelona, Jenson qualified in 6th position, so that was a good effort from him. Whether they'll be able to do the same here is another matter. So on track then we are for the final 45 minutes of free practice. This, the final build-up towards qualifying. and already on track, Felipe Massa, Alex Young and Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve really struggling for pace here so far this weekend. He's way down in 18th position and really needs to find something to make that car work and see him move up the order. His teammate Olivier Panis was 8th fastest this morning.
There's just under a second difference between the times of Panis this morning and Villeneuve this morning, so it's not a mountain to climb. And again, referring back to what we saw yesterday, I just wonder, has the team considered, or has Jacques been prepared to accept that he should try the setup of Olivier Panis and just rule that out? Or is this maybe a rogue chassis, as Benetton have found with Jarno Trulli's regular race car? These things do occur. It's very difficult to understand it, particularly with the detail and construction of Formula One cars today. It is possible to produce identical cars, but why two cars should perform differently is a mystery to Renault, and right now may well be the same to the BAR team.
Here we are then on one of these long straights, up to 308 kilometres per hour. Well, 307 for Felipe Massa on the fastest that he did in that first bit, and he went in a little bit too quick to Remus. You could see him busy sorting it out through the second gear corner. Another area of track where they're at full throttle for around 10 seconds, so the engine's really working hard for a long time. And then there's another place where they've got to get on the brakes slightly downhill, and that can affect the brake balance into the corner. And getting that brake balance right for these several key areas of heavy braking from around 190, 195 miles an hour is part of the challenge here at the A1 ring. We're watching Felipe, very determined, very committed. Peter, he's an enjoyable driver to watch out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and I'm on the pit wall ready to watch him going into turn 1 here. It's a fantastic place to be, to see the exit of the last corner and breaking into turn 1. Talking to Peter Sauber last night at Felipe, and he made an interesting comment which I think bears out the moment we just saw. He said, very, very talented guy, very, very quick on fast and medium speed corners, but at the moment, because he's young, because he's so hot and hungry, his biggest, weakest point is braking too late into slow corners and just getting a bit too overexcited. And I'm sure, John, I never saw you doing that, but I'm sure you can sympathise with that. That's what all young, hot-blooded, very talented guys tend to do, brake too late into slow corners.
Yeah, we just seen Alex Young get it all wrong, whether it was braking too late. I think he was just very wide into the Jochen curve, spun, gone into the gravel trap, reversed all the way through the gravel trap, and has managed to pick up the throttle, get the clutch, and has driven back on track. So youth and enthusiasm seem to go hand in hand, in particular Massa. It's not just he's quick, he's got great car control, he throws the car around with abandon. Watching him in that morning part of this 45-minute session, he came out of the A1 curve, got it sideways over our camera. I mean, where they get it from, 21 years of age, just driving with the kind of sort of maturity you'd expect somebody with another 10 years. But it's just enthusiasm, passion, something that really, you only get with youth, I think.
Yeah, well, Felipe Massa's been a star turn this year. There's his teammate Nick Heidfeld, though, and as we've mentioned several times, Nick might not be so dramatic to watch, but when it comes to qualifying, he usually does have the edge.
Yes, he's a lot more experienced, a lot more effective. Never was one of those drivers that grabbed your attention because he looked fast. Very often, Grand Prix drivers look stunning, they look fast. You look at the stopwatch and say, well, where's the time gone? Well, I think Nick Heidfeld's one of those drivers you will not sort of be shocked by, but when you look at the stopwatch, then the shock can set in.
That's right, more like the Alan Prost style, perhaps a little bit. We saw Enrique Bernoldi going very quickly this morning, also his teammate Heinz Harald Frentzen. Bernoldi 10th fastest now currently, and Nick Damon caught up with him just a second ago.
Enrique Bernoldi, second session started, but you're here with me on the pit wall. What's the problem?
After the end of the first session, I got a gearbox problem on my car. So we are checking now before qualifying, which it's better. But it seems like there is nothing, just was something not quite right.
You must be very pleased where the car's going. It's consistently fast, and both you and Heinz able to put a lot of good time.
Yeah, the car also this morning felt good straight away. I was very high up on the time, so the car is feeling good, and also the engine, so I'm very confident.
Thanks, Enrique.
So Enrique Bernoldi waiting to come back out onto the track after they've made a few checks, and here we are with that over-the-shoulder view with Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan Honda.
Well, one Honda car we're riding with, that's Fisichella in the Jordan, but another Honda car has gone third quickest, Olivier Panis, has done a stunning 10.562. And that was why we were talking to Enrique Bernoldi. That lap from Panis just slipped in ever so quickly and quietly. And BAR, third quickest behind the two Ferraris.
So an impressive performance from Panis, who put in so many laps yesterday and experimented, he said, with just about everything. Watching this view with Giancarlo Fisichella. Oh, and off goes a McLaren. Which one is that?
Raikkonen.
It is indeed. Give me right.
And again, that's down between the Jochen Rindt curve. Ran wide again, or got loose. We don't know. Hopefully we'll get a replay of that over the gravel. We're right on board. You can see the dust still on the grooves on the Michelin tyres. So Raikkonen having to complete a lap. He couldn't dive across the track, thank goodness, either. So let's look at it again. This is coming down into the Jochen Rindt turn-ins. We've seen him oversteering a lot. He had oversteer there. He couldn't pinch the car. So clearly Raikkonen's car set up and that of David Coulthard are different. Raikkonen runs the car with a lot more downforce.
Look at this lap from Michael Schumacher. It's another new fastest lap, for 1 minute 8.864 for the World Championship leader. And once again, he puts it slightly further out of reach, that fastest time. Now, looking at the times they're doing, they're going to be in qualifying, surely into the low 1 minute 8s and perhaps even into the 1 minute 7s at this rate.
Yes, and Michael Schumacher might have got a bit of a hurry up, because on the previous lap, Rubens Barrichello got within a tenth of Schumacher's previous best time. So both Ferraris now just continuing this remorseless move forward, just taking themselves further and further away from the field. We thought here in Austria we were going to see a real battle for pole position between Ferrari and in particular Williams, with the possibility of McLaren might sneak in there as well. But at the minute what we're seeing is domination from Ferrari at a magnitude and level which is really just truly awesome.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps Williams BMW will still have something up their sleeve later on in qualifying itself. Olivier Panis then with that great effort to move up to third fastest at the moment. Eddie Irvine languishes down in 19th place. The work continues, and Jaguar team making checks on the tyre pressures, tyre temperatures every time the car comes back into the pits, using the Michelin tyre, of course, on the Jaguar, as we see the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen pushed back in.
Well, there's a look at those tyres that went over the gravel, and well, considering the trip across that gravel, they don't look too bad. But looking back into that Jaguar garage, really the level of frustration that Eddie Irvine in particular must be feeling, having won here in 99, having been your runner-up in the World Championship, could have won the World Championship in Japan that year. Spent now, this is his third year of a 3-year contract in Jaguar, and had hoped that probably in year 2 would see movement forward, in year 3 really the repayment of all that investment, and it is just not happening. And I think the frustration is really getting the better of Eddie, and still tries hard, still a great race driver, and that's really where his strength will come through here this weekend, will be in the race. Nevertheless, very, very difficult to keep your morale high.
Ross Brawn keeps an eye on changes that are made to the Ferraris before coming back out again. We saw Felipe Massa just putting in a couple of quick sector times, but he's come into the pits, so from 7th fastest position. Takuma Sato's just improved slightly. He's up to 13th place in the Jordan, with Fisichella now 14th place. And we can see that the car of Ralf Schumacher's in as Juan Pablo Montoya goes on to a lap. He's 13th quickest at the moment on his fairly worn Michelin tyres. Qualified second here last year. They were second and third, the two Williams BMWs. But they're going to be hard pushed by the looks of things this time to beat the two Ferraris of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
Well, first sector time, 2/10 down on Michael Schumacher.
And you could look at those tyres, John. They don't look as good, do they?
Well, I think that what we saw in the Ferrari was perfection. There's a slight feathering in the colour of the tyre, maybe isn't quite as good, but of course different ideal in terms of construction. The Michelin tyre is a much more square design tyre, and that I think shows on the tread pattern. Remember the Ferrari running that huge amount of camber angle that we saw, picked that up first thing on Friday morning. And again, you see the way the inside tyre, the way the colour changes, particularly the sort of middle sector of the tyre. You can see that going to black, then to grey, then to black, and that's just the way the tread and the tyre surface is being, and he's backed off.
He slows it down, he comes back into the pits. Does look as though those tyres may well have done quite a few laps by now, so it looks as though it's not as if he's on a new set. Peter, I think you've got a comment to make on the tyres.
Yes, interesting to hear John's comments then about the difference in the shape of the tyres between the Michelin and the Bridgestone. The Michelin, a squarer tyre. We think a thicker sidewall, altogether a thicker tyre. And if you talk to drivers and engineers up and down the pit lane, the general consensus is that the Michelin is a heavier tyre. We're talking 1 or 2 kilos, which is quite a lot in terms of unsprung weight. So that is another factor that affects the performance of these two different tyre companies.
We've got a car off. Sorry to interrupt you, Peter. We've got Takuma off the track, and
that's done in the Berger corner, which is the first time we've seen, I think, anybody off there so far this weekend, and he's just spun it on the exit and drives back on track, managed to pull the clutch. He was behind the steering wheel.
He'll be heading back into the pits, called in by the team. Let's take a look and see what happened.
Well, he got it wrong. No, he didn't get it wrong. I thought he was going to get it wrong coming out of the Lauda corner. He got the oversteer coming in very early, had to correct it, got onto the dirty part of the track, which then just seduced him into the gravel beds, and he bounced across that, but no damage to the car.
Let's take a look from the onboard. That was the moment it got away from him, and then from there on he was on the dirty stuff, and no chance of getting out of that. Get the engine running this time.
Tyres, yeah, but clean these up and see what they're like. We'll underuse these again if we can.
When they say clean them up, what they'll do is they'll take them off the car, they'll be returned to Bridgestone, they'll put them on the respective wheel balancer, and then they'll clean that tyre surface up and check them out.
I got a graining, and the first lap was just okay, but had a graining already. The second lap got worse, and the third lap got worse. I had a momentum at turn 5 and I spun it. Basically.
Well, that's interesting. He's saying that his Bridgestone tyres graining from the second lap. So it's not all sweetness and light for them, certainly, as it may be a different story for the Ferraris.
And we saw when Montoya came in that the right front of his tyre was very, very heavily grained. And that's when you get a series of very, very fine, almost like little ripples across the tyre surface, as opposed to having it a totally clean surface that we've seen from both Ferraris.
So Giancarlo Fisichella currently 15th in the other of the Jordan Hondas, the experienced Italian, looking for a finish here at the A1 ring more than anything else, really. And of course they'd love to score some points. Jordan still without any points in the Constructors' Championship. The same situation for BAR Honda, and that's something they need to redress this weekend. Of course, this race does throw up some unpredictable results. We've often seen accidents into this first corner, where you see them flying through at the moment. It's caught Michael Schumacher out in the past. He got knocked off by Ricardo Zonta a couple of years ago. Often there's an incident up there, and often that can allow people who've qualified lower down to actually achieve a decent result.
Well, Michael Schumacher 2/10 down on his current fastest sector time, but behind him in third place Olivier Panis. Here we see Panis, he's improved in his first sector, improved in the second sector. Now Panis is what, about half a second, 6/10 of a second behind Ruben Barrichello. He's not going to find that amount of time on this lap, but he might draw himself closer. He might maybe take 2 or 3 tenths and close that gap. And a confirmation that Panis and BAR are working extremely well. Runs wide on the exit. Olivier Panis, of course, was test driver in McLaren in the year 2000. Learned a lot. 10.2, that is an improvement. That's 3/10 of a second improvement for Olivier Panis, and really indication of the potential of BAR and Honda have. They've just got to find a way to unlock it, and maybe they're going to do so here this weekend.
Great effort then from Olivier Panis. Juan Pablo Montoya inside the pit garage, and there, look, a new set of boots for Montoya. This might give us a little bit more of an indication as to the pace of the Williams BMW as he comes out on a very shiny set of new tyres.
Michael Schumacher continues around. Again, this lap not showing anything particularly special. It's still quick by anybody else's standards. I think the rest of the field would be delighted to take that time. But for Michael, of course, he only wants perfection, and only behind Nick Heidfeld, he may well want to get past Heidfeld. So Heidfeld backs off, lets Michael go through. So Heidfeld, having just gone out and not doing anything particularly special.
Big improvement from Jacques Villeneuve, who's gone 4th fastest, just behind teammate Panis. So at last Villeneuve's done a decent lap, and Michael Schumacher goes faster again by 8 thousandths of a second. Wanted 8.856 now for the Ferrari driver, but a good performance from Olivier Panis and Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve now just a fraction behind his teammate. 4th fastest with Raikkonen, Heidfeld, Frentzen, Massa, Coulthard and Button rounding out the top 10.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya has completed his out lap. He now begins a flying lap. You can still see the freshness in the grooves of his Michelin tyres, but Michael Schumacher is still piling on the pressure, gone fastest through that first sector, just ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya. Montoya comes up 17.5 against 17.2 for Michael Schumacher. Well, it's showing in fact 17, or well, we're looking at the best on the screen as opposed to the last lap. I don't think Montoya was actually quite as close to Michael Schumacher in time as that indication on screen gave us.
Well, let's continue to watch this, an important lap this from Juan Pablo Montoya. Second split time, 46.690, set by Michael Schumacher. And Montoya using all the road, and look, 0.6 of a second down. Now, he may well have more fuel on board, but it's still a long way to be off the Ferrari. Meanwhile, Michael's just set a new fastest sector time in the first part of the lap, but a bit slower on the second part, so I don't think this will be an overall improvement.
And that 1:15, of course, is not relevant whatsoever. Juan Pablo Montoya comes across start-finish line, goes third quickest, 19.693.
Yes, which is half a second off Barrichello's pace, but it's still 0.8 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher's pace. It puts him ahead of the BAR, and Jarno Trulli's just moved up. He's come up to 5th place in the Renault now, as we enjoy these fantastic super slow-mo pictures here on F1 Digital. Watch the Formula 1 car at work through that first turn, the Castrol curve here at the A1 ring.
You really get a very good view, particularly of the rear and how that rear Michelin tyre works. We've seen it on the front Michelin, there's an oscillation occurred, particularly we saw the McLaren in the Brazil Grand Prix. Not so evident here in any of the Michelin runners. Nevertheless, Montoya pushing personal best first and second sectors. And back again with Michael Schumacher, fastest overall in the second sector, 1:8.433.
Another improvement then for Michael Schumacher by 0.4 of a second, although Montoya's lap coming up is, it was going to be an improvement, but he's just gone off the road. Montoya will not improve on this lap, obviously, and that's a great shame. He was on personal bests on both the first and second sectors, but he still would have been some way off Michael Schumacher's new target time of 1:8.433.
And that time is 0.6 of a second faster than Rubens Barrichello. And we see Juan Pablo probably again a big low oversteers coming up every minute. Here we go, not this one, that's the Niki Lauda curve, then into the Berger curve. Watch the same thing as we saw from Takuma Sato, the back end drifts away. When it happens in that part of the circuit, a slightly banked corner, when it goes, really you're very lucky to keep the car in control, and if you do, it'll be taken into the gravel anyway, because the outside of that corner is particularly dirty. Marc Genet standing in the pits, test driver for the Williams team, adding his comments and observations. And Juan Pablo comes in to be disappointed not to get a time. Again, you could see graining, particularly on that right front tyre, as teammate Ralf Schumacher negotiates through the Berger curves cleanly, but 0.3 of a second down. This is going to see Ralf Schumacher leap up to certainly third quickest in my view.
Keep it together, Ralf, through these last two corners, and on the power as he comes through the A1 curve. This brings him to third indeed, so that puts him just ahead of teammate Juan Pablo Montoya by 0.4 of a second, probably about the same time that Montoya would have done if he'd completed that previous lap.
Yes, and what we're now getting is the clear picture of what we anticipated. The trouble is that the gap between Michael Schumacher and the rest of the field, forget about Rubens Barrichello, Rubens 0.6 of a second away, this 1 of a second between Barrichello and Ralf, and a further 0.4 of a second between Ralf and Montoya.
Still, we don't know the true story until we get into time, when everybody has pumped out all of the fuel, and they put on their new sets of tyres. 4 sets of tyres they'll have to use, of course.
We just got a glimpse of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's 6th quickest, and he's just inside the 1:9 with a 9.96. And behind him, Olivier Panis in the first of the BARs.
Yeah, so those BARs have been pushed down the order in the last few laps, because we've seen Ralf go to 3rd, Montoya to 4th, Raikkonen's improved, he's back up to 5th now, Frentzen improving up to 6th, then it's Panis in 7th place, just heading out of the pit lane once again, in fact, Panis. Trulli 8th, then Villeneuve 9th, Button 10th, Massa, you're watching here, coming in 11th, Mika Salo 12th, ahead of Heidfeld, Coulthard's down in 14th position.
Carlos running through some of the tyre program at the moment that we're going to do. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea just to see what his results are, and then we can make a decision what we do, because we've only got 1 set of tyres left that we can use now. And if that gives us a bit of direction on the qualifying side of things, so maybe we can use their data to do the rest of the session. So we'll just hang on and see what he says, yeah?
Well, real insight into what's going on in Formula One there, the Jordan team saying we're going to rely on Fisichella's information to give us the direction for our choice.
So, Fisichella on track at the moment. He's just put a personal best sector in the middle sector there, down in 17th place at the moment. But the Williams boys, we've seen Ralph go third, Montoya in fourth position, and I believe we can speak to Dickie Stanford at Williams. Dickie, can you hear us all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Great, well, good to hear from you this morning. I know it's a busy time of day for you as you're getting the cars ready. Will you be putting in a full sort of qualifying run, or have you even tried that already in this session?
No, we haven't tried it yet. We're just running through tyre programs at the moment. We should be doing that towards the end of the session.
What's your feeling generally about the tyre choice this weekend? Have you finalised your tyre choice for which one to use for qualifying?
No, not yet. It's proving rather difficult, this race.
Interesting point that, John.
Dickie, I noticed on Juan Pablo's car when he came in prior to going out on those new tyres that he was getting a lot of graining on the right front. I don't understand why he would get it on the right front when it's predominantly right-hand cornered circuit.
I'd rather keep that a bit quiet at the moment, John. We're still running through the tyre programme.
Come on, Dickie, tell the world.
I'm sorry, I can't tell the world.
Well, thanks for joining us anyway, Dickie. Great to have your input. A busy time of day for you. We'll let you get on with the programme.
Thank you very much.
So, Ralf Schumacher currently third, as we said, Montoya fourth. Now, Fisichella's the one that's trying to make some improvements. He's gone up to 10th, and the Jordan team, as we heard, will be taking information from that run and therefore using it on Sato's car. So Sato waiting to come back out again. Eddie Irvine also waiting to come back out, but De La Rosa is currently in the pits himself as well.
And Jordan, like they are benefiting from the Bridgestone tyre, and Fisichella's time more representative of what Jordan should be doing. 10th quickest goes Takuma Sato, down in 17th. His engineers are saying, let's wait out for a few minutes. We'll get the information from Giancarlo Fisichella, then we will give you that set of tyres. Now, it's a bit of a tall order for a young and inexperienced driver like Sato, as we look and see. Well, there's a bit of a wobble at the Rima's curve, and the BAR engineers enjoying that. But Sato will be sent out in a set of tyres which he will have to find out very rapidly whether those tyres are going to give him the balance that he would like, or whether he's going to have to accept Fisichella's decisions.
Now, we've been watching drivers attacking curbs and differing styles, and Peter's been getting a bit more of a close-up view of it up at the Castrol curve, turn one. What have you seen up there, Peter?
Well, I'm not actually up the curb, as you can see. I'm on the pit wall here, but it's a great view, almost a planned view of the braking area there. And it is astonishing, the difference in style between one driver and another as they approach that corner. Sure, from apex to exit, they're all pretty similar, but as they go in, for example, Kimi Raikkonen is about 2 feet from the white line on the left as he starts his braking, then moves right over to the white line on the outside of the corner before he pitches the car in. Whereas a guy like Jenson Button or Giancarlo Fisichella are turning in probably from about 18 inches inside the white line. And it may not sound like enough, but when you consider the sort of speed they're doing and how important it is to maximise use of the road, that's an enormous difference between 2 or 3 incredibly talented drivers. I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong, it's just a difference in approach.
Peter,
it's also interesting, I think, that...
Peter, do you not think that's just simply a matter of confidence, that if you've got the confidence, you can go to the very edge? If you're not quite sure what your car is going to do, you're not going to go to the edge.
Yeah, but there is a pattern. I mean, guys like Fisichella always seem to turn in earlier than guys like Raikkonen. It's just a feel they have. They just seem to want to turn in on the brakes. And for me, there's always been 2 different styles of driving. Fisichella is one example of that, and Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa, it has to be said, is the other extreme. Nothing right, nothing wrong. It's just the way they are. And I think it's interesting, certainly from where I sit, in the top 3 teams, we have those 2 contrasting styles between the 2 drivers at Ferrari, Williams and McLaren. Michael is the sort of guy that likes to get into early. Rubens turns in a little bit later. At Williams, Montoya turns in later. Ralph likes to get in a bit earlier. And certainly at McLaren, DC gets in a lot earlier to the apex than Kimi Raikkonen. Again, nothing right or wrong about it, it's just observations.
The trouble is, of course, Peter, as you well know, the driver in any individual team who's quicker than his teammate is the driver that the team focus upon. So if you can't deal with a car like Raikkonen can, which is a very front-endy car, DC, who we're riding with right now, will basically be struggling.
Yeah, that's right. DC doesn't look his usual normal confident self into that corner. He looks quick, but he's not just turning the front end as he normally does. Jenson Button looks very good into that corner, I have to say. Very nice turn in. Again, he's a good foot away from the white line as he turns in.
Well, thanks for the insight there, Peter, and we'll keep an eye on that from our vantage point as well. We're watching Enrique Bernoldi coming through that very corner. He wasn't particularly close to the white line on turn-in, but what we're expecting to see now in the final 17.5 minutes of this session, the build-up towards qualifying intensify, and several of the teams, most of the teams perhaps, putting in a qualifying run, taking the fuel out and putting a new set of tyres on. Perhaps not everybody will use new tyres, and we'll try and keep an eye on that.
Well, somebody who's just done a very quick lap is Nick Heidfeld. Heidfeld has been all weekend, again doing it in a very unobtrusive manner, 1:9.592. That's fourth quickest ahead of Montoya. And again, the Sauber team, and again Alex Young makes a big mistake this time. I think
it's Webber, actually this time, John. It's Mark Webber.
It is Webber, you're correct.
Who's gone
on the
off.
exit, A1 exit.
Yeah, on the outside, coming on to start finish straight, and I think he may have stalled the engine this time. Doesn't look as though he's kept it running. And that's a great shame for Webber as he builds up towards qualifying. He just put in a personal best in the mid-sector, but then the car just getting away from him. Let's see what happened to him.
Well, turn-in's normal. Again, that big dip in the middle of the A1 at the apex. That dip is there because there's inside the curbing, there's a metal guttering to enable any water that falls to get drained away very quickly. Otherwise, you'd have a lake forming there. But it unsettles the car, and if you attack it too aggressively, and Webber's got his car running again, if you attack it too aggressively, then you can unsettle the car, and that gets into a sort of a hip skip and a hop, skip and a jump, and that's what it looked like to me for Mark Webber.
Yeah, but he has, as you say, kept it running, managed to get back into the action again, so Giancarlo Minardi and the rest of the crew can relax a little bit about that. And Peter, I think you've got an explanation as to how Mark was able to get going again, haven't you?
Well, yes, I was just thinking how fantastic it is we have these anti-stall devices on the cars these days. John, I'm sure that's a luxury you ever enjoyed, but basically, assuming the car's performing as it should, the engine will not stall, and we saw a good example of that with Mark Webber. Plus, as we remarked yesterday, great runoff area here. Everybody seems to be able to get out of it, but it does the job of slowing the cars down.
Yeah. That anti-stall device, of course, is only available for 5 seconds. Within that 5 seconds, the driver's got to find the clutch lever, lift it, and then take control, because the anti-stall device is not there for a limitless amount of time. It only operates for 5 seconds.
Certainly useful in the case of a spin like that for Mark Webber. Now on board with Juan Pablo Montoya, and we heard from Dickie Stanford that they had still been going through.
And look, he's up by 39 thousandths of a second.
All right, now this is more like the simulated qualifying run, so they obviously still had fuel in when a fair bit of fuel in when he ran the new tyres last time around. This time perhaps the car running lighter with under quarter of an hour to go in free practice. Let's keep an eye on those split times. Second one coming up now, and let's see whether Montoya is up on the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher.
And how much easier it is when he's dropped half a second. I mean, he dropped half a second in that second sector. That's a bunch of time, and that will be disappointing having been up in the first sector. But I was going to say, how much difference a brand new set of tyres makes the precision that the car has compared to an old set. Again, a little bit of oversteer just as he's committing himself to A1 corner. But can he claw back any of that time lost? Well, he lost even a further half a second. That was a poor lap.
Yes, it was. Maybe, I say he was on new tyres, perhaps he wasn't. The first sector, of course, is more about drag and engine power. Then when he got into the cornering sections, his times weren't there, so it's quite possible he wasn't on a new set. We didn't actually see him go out on a new set of tyres. We'll try and keep an eye on that as they come down pit lane. Now, on board with Michael Schumacher, up towards turn 1, the Castrol curve. How much curve does he use on the inside and outside? Just about the right amount, I would say.
Yeah, and the car looks absolutely perfect. He has quite a lot of lock when he turns in, but understeer per se in itself isn't the problem. It's the balance of the car. Understeer is only a function of what you feel comfortable with. Again, through the Remus curve, quite a lot of lock, but good balance of the car. He can open the throttle early and offset that lock by letting the back end of the car drift around before he gets to the exit of the corner. Traffic ahead, and that's going to disappoint him. You got Villeneuve and Alex Young, all staying well out of his way. not showing anything particularly special in that first sector. 4/10 down in the second sector, so Michael would have been slightly disappointed, but time in that first sector indicated probably fairly early on the lap wasn't going to be a significant improvement on his current 1 minute 8.433.
Oh, he's made a big mistake there.
Huge error. Michael took a massive chunk of corner. I mean, really almost had the entire car over the curb and clearly made a misjudgment. Now, what he was trying to do there, we wait to see the replay of it, but he just seemed to turn the wheel very aggressively, whether he was trying something different or not, but I've not seen anybody attack as aggressively as that. Watch again and see how far he gets the car. Look at that. And then just runs way wide on the exit. Keeps the car going straight, does a good job, and brings the car back on track. And I mean, what a well-made car that Ferrari is. Nothing fell off it. Nothing looks damaged. Watch again with the turn-in. Sharp turn-in here. Way over the curb. Almost, you could see the left-hand wheels were almost over the curb as well as the right side.
Similar to Mark Webber, wasn't it? And he hits the dip. There's a real dip in the middle of that corner. Michael Schumacher hit that a little too and ran wide the back end, as Webber had done, and managed to rejoin the track. So you can see Michael Schumacher still pushing, no matter what the advantage he has. Ralf Schumacher just over a tenth of a second down on the first split there. Ralf currently third fastest. It's the two Ferraris at the top of the table at the moment. Then it's the Williams of Ralf here. Then it's Felipe Massa ahead of Montoya, Heidfeld, Raikkonen 7th, Panis 8th, Frentzen 9th, Sarlo up into 10th in the Toyota, 11th for Coulthard. Then it's Trulli, Villeneuve, Button, McNish 15th, Fisichella 16th ahead of Bernoldi, Sato, De La Rosa and Irvine, and then Mark Webber and Alex Young at the back.
You can see where the time's being lost. It's really in that second sector. He was 3/10 down in the first sector, now over a second in the second, and it will probably be about 1.2 by the time he comes across the line. And I mean, really, the difference in performance, and this is down 2 tyres, it's nothing else, is just quite. I mean, I'm really surprised. I did not expect anything. They got 2 seconds down.
Now on board with Rubens Barrichello. Let's listen up a little bit on the onboard camera. A little bit of a lift there, but he didn't hit the curve as hard as Michael and managed to get a good tidy line. Second off, so presumably he's on used tyres at this point.
Well, we're just coming up to the final 10 minutes of this 45-minute session. Michael back in the pits. I would think the team want to have a look at the car to see if there's any damage to any of the underbody parts, the diffusers, the underbody itself. Ross coming off pit wall to speak to Michael just to ask him what went wrong, what did he do, why did the car suddenly take such a large amount of curb, and no doubt he'll go out at the end of the session with fresh rubber and maybe just set a new benchmark time. As you watch Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who has started he had started a lap but has backed off. In fact, he's coming back into the pits. He's done a 9.885, which is an improvement for Frentzen. Panis just ahead of him, so there's been a bit of a swap around between Panis and Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Now looking at Alex Young, what's he been up to in the Minardi? Oh, he got a bit of the dirt, but he saved it well. Good car control from Alex Young, saving the moments. He's the slowest so far on 1:13.1, but just a couple of tenths slower than his teammate Mark Webber.
Felipe Massa and Nick Heidfeld, both cars in the top 6, 4th and 6th. I mean, great effort again from the Swiss-based team. Just gets on with the job, quietly, efficient, none of the hullabaloo, and well, some of the other teams in the pit lane seem to focus on other issues which have got nothing to do with motor racing, and the Sauber team just gets its head down and probably thinks of that wonderful film called The Third Man, and Orson Welles comments that all the Swiss have ever done is create cuckoo clocks. Well, they're creating some very, very competitive racing cars now. Rubens Barrichello, fastest of all in that first sector, quicker than Michael Schumacher by 0.05 of a second.
Kimi Raikkonen on a bit of a lap here to try and improve from his current 7th, although the first split not that great, and he's got a little held up too. Juan Pablo Montoya waits to come back out with 8.5 minutes of free practice remaining at the A1 ring in Austria. Ideal conditions, it's a perfect day in the Austrian mountains, and everybody looking forward to the battle for qualifying. But can anybody match Ferrari? Everybody else is struggling a little bit, but Michelin tyres having the edge here that was expected to a certain extent, but Bridgestone just taking the battle further and further. And we're on board here with Kimi Räikkönen. That helmet camera looking straight back at his crash helmet. Räikkönen still in 7th.
Rubens Barrichello, who had been very quick, in fact quickest of all in this first sector. That lap didn't materialise. It was some 2/10 down in his personal best. Still a long, long way behind teammate Michael Schumacher. Begins the process once again. And this time some 4/10 of a second down. As we look back at Ralf Schumacher again, look at the brake, look at the carbon dust being a huge amount. This is a very heavy circuit on braking, and particularly in these first 3 corners, brakes take a real hammering. And brake conservation is something that drivers have to be particularly careful of. Again, if you're going to do a one-stop race, you've got heavy fuel load on board, and it's important to consider your brakes.
So, Peter, I think, has something to add on the brakes discussion. Peter?
Yes, watching Ralf Schumacher here, he is blowing out lots of brake dust into turn 1, and he's the only driver doing that. When we questioned Williams about that the previous race, they said it was because at this point of the session he was running qualifying brake ducts, so maybe that's the answer. But Ralf Schumacher, the only one blowing out that amount of brake dust.
So Ralf currently 3rd fastest. We're waiting several people to come out onto the track, and it looks like Michael Schumacher is expecting to make a run.
And unused tyres too.
Yes, not a new set of tyres on board that Ferrari, so that's a crucial thing to take note of there. His lap time currently 1.433. Unlikely he's going to improve that on a used set of tyres.
Well, Coulthard looks on a very fresh set of tyres. Again, you can see the shiny, the grooves are still very, very, there's no road dirt or general grime in that tyre. The left front looking not as clean as the right front, but that you expect on a circuit like Austria, which is predominantly right-hand corners. It's not very, again, very uncommitted into that downhill Grosser corner. Had to wait to pick up the throttle.
Yeah, it's still not quite coming his way. Let's just check the second split. 1.3 seconds down, and that's at the second intermediate, so it's going to be a lot further off by the time he makes it round to start-finish line. Currently in 12th position, but no improvement, I think, on this particular lap for the McLaren driver. And he's off the track and into the gravel trap on the outside. Ridge curve. Oh, it's not coming together for David Coulthard at one of his best circuits in the past.
And I think the problem is that the way the car is set up, that Coulthard, the commitment or lack of commitment, he's always having to wait. He's waiting to feel something from the car. It's a confidence thing once again. And you can see he came into the Rindt curve. He knew the back end was about to drift away. He had to get out of the throttle. He had to let the car run wide. He had no option. I was either that or he was going to spin. Watch again. Look, you can see the back end had broken away. He had to correct it. And I mean, give David Coulthard a car he can drive. He might go quickly once again.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with David's talent, but the car itself is not providing him the confidence he needs. Another look at it from on board.
Yeah, that's just simply the back broke away in the middle of the corner. Coulthard does not want a car like that. He wants a car probably much more like Michael Schumacher has. He doesn't mind a little bit of understeer as long as he can get car attitude. And well, Ron, looking at the screen, it's not going to help things very much. You've just got to get some engineering and get these cars handling to suit both drivers.
Just 4.5 minutes to go in this free practice session before the final preparations are made for qualifying. Michael Schumacher finding a bit of traffic around. I think that was Mark Webber getting out of his way.
Also Benson was there and Benoldi. So I mean, that was a very close call. I mean, the wide-angle lens on the camera did not give you how close Michael got to the back of Benson's arrows.
No, he was very close indeed. You can see he's down on his own personal best by half a second on these used tyres. Take another look at this. Whoa.
Well, that's close. Believe me, there was not much between those two cars.
Yeah, that was Frenson's car that he just missed, but thankfully he did miss and comes around to complete another lap in this free practice session. 1.95, so about a second off with a bit of traffic around and on the used Bridgestone tyres. But a 1 minute 9.5 would still put him in third place at the moment. Third, fourth place at the moment against everybody else.
David Coulthard, in the meantime, back up around the Grosser curve. We saw him the lap before. Got a little problem with the handling as we look at Felipe Massa. Still 4th quickest, young Brazilian, sitting there, I mean, in the 6th Grand Prix, 21 years of age, watches the screen. Heidfeld, his teammate, 2 places further down in 6th, with the Williams splitting those 2 Saibers. Michael Schumacher has gone quickest of all up the hill into that Remus corner. 309 kilometers per hour. Again, in terms of lap speed, the used tyres that he is on not ultimately giving him the grip levels that he will get, as long as he can find the balance on a new set of rubber.
Well, Massa's best qualifying performance this year has been 9th. That was actually the season opener in Melbourne, and got to be a good prospect today of him improving on that. There's Juan Pablo's father with Patrick Head in the background, watching progress, watching the times that other people are setting. Michael Schumacher's Ferrari, fastest through the speed trap just a second ago. He's got it at 309 through the speed trap approaching the Remus curve, and 310 on the speed trap approaching the Gossa curve. So that's we're about the 194-mile-an-hour mark at those maximum speed points around the track.
There's two good times coming on McNish, 10th quickest, Mikasalo in 11th. We'll listen to Frentzen or try to catch what they were talking about. But the Toyota's working better here on this much smoother circuit, a circuit that flatters the power of the Toyota engine, one of the most powerful in Formula One. As we ride with Juan Pablo Montoya. Montoya was quick in terms of speed again up to that first sector, but not necessarily quick in terms of times. Let's look and see if he's lost again that chunk of time that he lost on previous runs.
Yeah,
well,
I think
2.5 seconds. Just go home, Juan Pablo. This run ain't worth it.
He seems to have backed off anyway. I think he's taking things fairly steady, whether he got held up somewhere else. This is a look at Michael Schumacher, and similar to what we saw a little while ago when he just avoided Frentzen. And I think this could be a factor of qualifying. It is a shorter track, so the fact is you're likely to encounter traffic that little more often.
It's going to be a frustrating session, the 1 hour qualifying coming up shortly. People are going to be constantly running up against cars that are either on an out lap or coming in, and particularly in corners like, oh, way off, and both Williams running in tandem. As Dad looks on, and Patrick's face doesn't give much away. Behind that sort of craggy look, there is a human being, believe it or not, but sometimes when you get the wrath of his anger, you wonder, did God ever create anybody like Patrick Head?
Oh, and we've got a car off. That's Bernoldi, Enrique Bernoldi, and that is down at the Remus curve. We've just seen Montoya go through there.
Turn the car off, the team say. They can see that he's beached. They don't want that engine overheating. Of course, there will be a big heat soak anyway. The engines run very hot, and when they stop, they come into the pits. This is Bernoldi. We're going to watch him again, and he lost it under brakes way before he got to the corner. But the team instructing the driver to turn the engine off. They don't want any additional heat soaking into the back of the car, and even when they come into the pits, they always put little fans into the radiator ducts to that heat soak is dissipated through the radiators out the back of the car.
Still waiting for those two Williams to complete their lap. They're just about to. In fact, Montoya's come into the pit, so he's decided not to finish off the lap. Ralf Schumacher has just been round, but not a particularly quick time for him.
Particularly quick time, though, for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. 5th quickest. The flag is out. The session is over. 1 minute 9.426 for the German, as you see Barrichello making his way past as they come up. That's Jensen Button. So Barrichello will be allowed to complete this lap. But big improvement indeed from Frentzen and the Arrows to go 5th quickest.
So we have seen the Bridgestone tyre cars running extremely well during this morning free practice session, you have to say, with Ferrari 1 and 2, Michael ahead of Barrichello. The first of the Michelins is in 3rd, that is Ralf Schumacher, with Montoya behind him. But then we've got another Bridgestone set of cars, because we have Frentzen 5th fastest, Massa 6th fastest, Heidfeld 7th fastest, all on Bridgestone tyres. The next Michelin is the McLaren of Raikkonen.
And you saw Michael Schumacher peel that tearaway away. He got a large insect hit on the left side of his visor. You can just about see into the visor, see Michael's eyes. With a tinted visor, it's more difficult. We did get that treat in Imola. As Pablo walks across, looks at the timing screens and chats 4th place. Teammate Ralf Schumacher, where is he? Ralf is in fact in 3rd place.
Well, certainly aren't lots of smiles and happy faces in the Williams pit at the moment, but I don't think Montoya was on new tyres at the end. Their time 1 minute 9.288, a full 0.8 of a second slower than this man, Michael Schumacher. I'm sure the battle will be closer when it comes to qualifying, but this F2002 chassis yet to be beaten. And Michael Schumacher looking to take his 2nd pole position at the A1 rig, following on from last year. And he seems to be in good shape to do it. But of course, the battle with his own teammate, Rubens Barrichello, has been incredibly intense over the last few races. And this is a track that Rubens loves and has always gone well at. So we could be in for a treat between the two Ferrari drivers trying to take pole.
Michael Schumacher comes into the pit lane as fast as is possible with the grip levels which are probably lower than the racetrack. And that again is just a part of the process Michael goes through in his preparations for Sunday's Grand Prix to ensure that he can maximise every opportunity in the pit lane. Even if it's only a one-stop Grand Prix, is an opportunity. Again, look at the tyres in that Ferrari. They look absolutely immaculate. And Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne and the entire Ferrari team, in conjunction with Bridgestone, have certainly got something which, well, that's as good as it's going to get.
Let's take a look at those times then and notice the Bs for Bridgestone, again dominating the top end of the timesheet. Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello for Ferrari ahead of the Williams BMWs of Schumacher and Montoya. Then it's the Arrows of Frentzen, the Saubers of Massa and Heidfeld, and then the McLaren Mercedes of Kimi Raikkonen, with the two BAR Hondas 9th and 10th. Now, if they could repeat that sort of pace in qualifying, that would be a big improvement, and it would be again down to the tyres, I'm sure, if that would move them ahead of people like Renault, where they are at the moment. Well, Toyota have been running quite competitively, 11th and 12th for McNish and Sarlo. Coulthard, though, seems to be struggling down in 13th. He's ahead of Bernaldi, then Trulli, Button, Fisichella and Sarto with the rest of the times. Well, Ferrari are once again at the top of the timesheets, and Peter Windsor's caught up with Jean Todt at Ferrari.
Well, actually, with Jean Todt at the moment, he's just looking at information. Jean, is it as easy as it looks from the outside at the moment for you?
Well, I must say the situation seems quite good. If you see the first 10, you understand that Bridgestone is doing a great job at the moment, that we have a good car, good engine, so all put together, good drivers, we look strong.
Michael had a bit of a moment coming out of the last corner there. What happened then?
Well, we should ask him.
Nothing serious then?
No, I mean, we just checked the car for cautious, but it was okay.
And reliability been good so far this weekend, touch wood?
Well, we did a lot of mileage, but you know, it's sometimes a bit sophisticated on electronic. We paid high costs since the beginning of the season, but I hope we've been very careful on quality control, reliability program, so I hope that it gives us some good surprise.
Us too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jean Todt delighted with performance so far of the Ferraris, and when he says it looks pretty good, then you know they're very confident. He never gives much away at all. So after Ferrari have dominated the free practice sessions here this morning, a chance for us to look back over some of the action on track today.